Hi guys, this is gsndom.com and I'm here with the Google Pixel 2 XL. It's the LG made handset, the big phablet, the Google flagship that was launched this fall, in October to be more precise. So they made two of them. They made the HTC one, the Pixel 2, and the LG one, the Pixel 2 XL. It's a bit controversial because of some bugs which actually we do not encounter, and it debuted in early October. It's priced at around $850 right now. It's got input via edges, and when I say input I mean you can trigger Google Assistant by squeezing the edges, and more than that we have the best CPU on the market and apparently the best camera on the market judging by the ExoMark. So let's get straight to it and see what the device is all about. So first of all, the Pixel XL, before it was bulky, massive, not sexy. This is actually a bit sexier thanks to the curved size of the screen. Also the grip is excellent. This is the kind of narrow phone that reminds me of the Galaxy Note 8. It's not as comfy and as narrow as the Galaxy Note 8, but pretty close. It feels like it was totally made of glass and then they put some sort of a bumper around it. Now the feeling is very interesting here. It feels a bit like graphite, while the sides, well, they feel a bit like metal covered with plastic, which they probably are. We get this trademark glass window at the back for the camera area, and the feel is, well, some people may say cheap, but I like the grip. That's the best thing about it. It certainly will not drop from the hand. We got some pretty good feedback from these buttons, although I often press the volume up button instead of the power one. They just didn't put it properly so I can reach it with my finger. If you want measurements, the phone is 7.9mm thick, which is actually thicker than the 7.3mm of the LG V30, and it weighs 175 grams, which for a 6-incher is quite okay, even though it cannot even begin to compare to the 158 grams of the LG V30. If you compare it to the Pixel XL, it's doing fine. That one was an 8.5mm thick phone and it weighed 168 grams. So it's narrow, it's comfy, it's well built, it's made of premium materials. Some people may not like the feel. In the end, it stands on its own. It comes in a black and white version or just black, and I'm happy to inform you it does not attract smudges or prints at the front or the back, so that's good news. Comfy, grippy, more refined, not a fan of the texture. Now, on the display front, we are dealing with a P-OLED 6-inch panel with a Quad HD processor resolution. What's Quad HD Plus? In this case is 2880 over 1440 pixels with a 100% DCI P3 coverage, so excellently calibrated colors, 100,000 to 1 contrast ratio, true black, 3D glass, Gorilla Glass 5, 24-bit colors, and of course it's true that we have the burn-in effect. If you leave a portion of the interface or an element on the screen too long, the burn-in effect will appear and you will see the shade of that element even as the image changes. Anyways, this unit has not experienced that, but you have to use the phone for a much longer time than I do in order to actually run into that. There is a bit of a gray effect, so if you tilt the phone a bit to the back, you should see that it can become a bit gray. Did not affect me that much, I can confirm it's real, but once again not affecting me very much. Now, if you want to talk about the actual viewing experience, we got photos here for you, and we also have the usual test samples. And when I say that, I mean we have the usual test videos, like this one here. First of all, pretty immersive experience I have to say, even though as you can see some black bezels around the image. I feel that the colors are a bit warmer than the classic OLEDs, that's for sure. Things are bright and crisp. I would say that the colors are overall okay. I'm digging these warm colors, not the cold and blue ones. We got a pretty solid contrast even in the sunlight. Pretty wide view angles, okay, and the colors do not pop. I said they're warmer, but they do not have the same pop like they have on the Super AMOLEDs on the Samsung phones. Okay, so now that we're done with those analyses of the screen, we also have some other details. We put the screen under the microscope and achieved this. So this is the pentile matrix dot arrangement of the pixels. You may be familiar with it, you may have seen it on other OLEDs. And as far as brightness goes, we measured it actually a bunch of times and got as high as 494 lux units. It's okay, it's quite good, but it doesn't break any records. We're accustomed to phones reaching almost 500 lux. It's actually the 42nd place phone all time from all of the many models we have tested. Now, Other thing worth mentioning here, this value beats the Motorola Moto Z and the Asus Zenfone 4, but it scores below the Xiaomi Mi 6 and the Xperia XZ by 100 lux, maybe more, so it's good, but we've seen better, even this whole year. Now we go to other areas and see what we're getting here. So let's see some of the options available. Go to display and we got brightness level, we got night light with a schedule and status. So night light will tint the screen a bit amber, so the blue light will not affect your sleep or cause any sort of problems. Other thing worth mentioning is that we have the adaptive brightness, wallpaper, advanced area with sleep, auto rotate and colors. It can be boosted, natural or saturated, and you can actually feel the swap between them. One of them is actually that thing I mentioned before, the bluish white. Font size, display size, screen 7 ambient display, which is basically the feature you've seen on so many phones, and it basically shows the time and notification and so forth. This is the feature I just mentioned. Okay, so that's that, a pretty solid screen, but certainly not a record breaker, and with the gray hue still being a problem even in this day and age. Now we go further, we proceed, and let's see what's happening next. Now I'm going to talk obviously about the hardware. So we start off with the CPU. This CPU is a Qualcomm Snapdragon 835, an octa-core unit with an Adreno 540 GPU and accompanied by 4 GB of RAM. Now as far as storage is concerned, 64 GB or 128 GB, no microSD as usual for a Nexus or a Pixel. And I have to say that when it comes to actual performance, leaving the hardware aside, I actually felt the jump from the fluidity of Nougat to the uber fluidity of Oreo. So Oreo feels snappier than Nougat, believe it or not. You can totally abuse multitasking, open up how many apps you want, start them up at the same time, they'll open up fast, start up without a question, and there will be zero lag at all time, no matter what you do. Of course, we also ran games. Shadow Fight 3, it's new, it's fresh, but we also ran another game which is one of the titles we always played. It's called Riptide Gp Renegade, and it was so good that I actually deleted it by mistake. Here we go, install, I'm going to show it to you. We always play it on phones, always try to test the maximum level of power of the device. Okay, so now it's installed, we can open it up and play Riptide GP Renegade. Here we go. So it wants to take me through the usual setup, and at least it fits on the whole screen, so that's a big plus. You saw the video before not fitting on the entire screen, so that's nice. Now let's check out its graphics. Okay, continue. Here we go. Looking pretty sweet, loving the frame rate, loving the fluidity of the water. I've seen devices with a more choppy and pixeled water, certainly not the case, and as usual I will compare this with the PS3 graphics. I would say that mobiles have long gone past the PS2, they're entering the PlayStation 3 territory, and it's looking pretty hot. Now since I've played Shadow Fight 3 and I've played this game and everything looks well, you can run any game for a year, maybe more in the future with zero problems. Now it's time to address the benchmarks. We also did those and we have them here. Sadly, Quadrant isn't very relevant anymore, they pulled it from the store, but we did it and I'm going to mention it anyway. So, in Quadrant we beat the LG G6 and the HTC Ultra, scored below the Zenfone 3 and the Huawei Nova somehow, so not very relevant. It's obviously not inferior to the Zenfone 3, in spite of what the benchmark is saying. And in Antutu, a very solid score. This beats the LG G6 and the OnePlus 3. Still, it scores below the iPhone 7 and below the HTC 11, so maybe the optimization not exactly at the top notch of the Antutu level. If you want to talk graphics, we got this one here. I'm used to scores which are in the hundreds. This is actually very impressive. So when it comes to the GPU, it's quite a performer. It's actually the second place phone all time. It beats the Galaxy S8. It beats the HTC 11 and only scores below the Xiaomi Mi 6. That's the only one. Solid performance, you can see it in all the benchmarks. This one here, huge score. This one here, also a pretty good score, although clearly not on par at all with an iPhone 8. Still, in the Android world, that's solid. You're probably wondering if the temperature goes high or not, so There's no case of overheating here, luckily. The temperature got as high as 37.6 degrees Celsius. We're running the game you saw before, Riptide, and we're running GFX Bench, the famous benchmark, 38.9 degrees Celsius, so no overheating again. Now this big phablet relies on a 3520 mAh battery, while the Pixel XL before it had a 3450 mAh battery. Just for the sake of a comparison, the iPhone X has a 2716 mAh unit, and we are promised up to 7 hours of use with a 15 minutes charge. Leaving that aside, I'm going to go to my own results and our own tests, which include among others HD video playback in a loop, and here we were able to achieve a continuous playback time of 12 hours and 55 minutes, which is quite solid. You can easily watch a whole Netflix show. This beats the Pixel XL by 5 minutes, it beats the iPhone 8 Plus, scores below the Galaxy Note 8 and the Huawei Mate 9. Now we also did a PC Mark test, which is the continuous usage one, and here we scored 44th, not very impressive. I've seen phones going into the tens of hours, basically 10 hours, 11 hours would be satisfying, but it's still pretty good. It beats the Sony Xperia XZ1 and Huawei Mate 9 Pro and scores below the Zenfone 4, Huawei Nova and Galaxy S8. Charging is done in 2 hours 30 minutes, it's still in the ballpark of good, it's superior to the iPhone 7 and the Xperia XA1. 5 minutes of charging is 2%, 15 minutes of charging is 36%, and with 30 minutes of charging you're at 73%. 1 hour is 93%, and that's excellent in my book. If you want to talk settings, you got battery settings here. Options are pretty typical. There's battery optimization, which is here with the apps you can tweak and the functions you can tweak. You got battery saver, which you can turn on, battery percentage, adaptive brightness, sleep, and ambient display, which if deactivated can give you a few more minutes of usage. So overall a pretty good battery, especially in the video playback. I wanted a bit more from continuous usage. Now that the battery is done, it's time to talk acoustics. So as you can probably tell and as you probably found out, we got dual stereo speakers, one here, which is pretty impressive because they're quite big slits, big speakers. We don't have an audio jack at the bottom, no audio jack at the top, but we do have an adapter which hooks to the USB Type-C and offers you an extra audio jack. Now, no headphones as well, but we do have high definition audio, wireless HD audio with LDAC, aptX, aptX HD, and if I'm speaking gibberish, those are the terms. Now we got Google Play Music here, with a pretty typical equalizer. I would have expected that with Oreo the equalizer would change. Well, nope. We got genre settings, 5 custom channels, bass, boost and surround sound. Basically everything is just as we left it. Now let's actually listen to some tunes, so here we go. Okay, conclusion time. I would say that the volume is quite high and it can even cover a conversation in a small room. The bass is pretty deep. I love the voice, I love the high notes, and the surround is basically superb, possibly one of the best I've heard. It's just enough to place the phone in landscape and test your perception of the surround. With a special video, you can feel the sound swapping from left to right and all around, so excellent surround. Now that's pretty much it as far as the experience is concerned, so we go to the decibel meter and see what that one shows. These are the values we achieved. So we got here 83.9 decibels, which happens at the top part of the phone, this speaker here. And then we have 83.5 decibels, so 83.9 at the top, 83.5 at the bottom. And if you put the phone with the speakers facing down, at the back you will achieve 79.6 decibels. As usual, we take into account the biggest value, 83.9 decibels. It means it beats the predecessor, the Pixel XL, and it's 83.4 decibels, beats the OnePlus 3, scores below the LG G4 and Xperia XA. Now, if you're talking about multimedia, that one involves the game from before, which is Riptide Gp Renegade, and had us at a value of 95.3 decibels. Quite solid. Still no record breaker. It beats Huawei Mate 9 Pro, HTC U11, scores below the Sony Xperia XA1 and the LG Q6, which is a lower end phone. In real life it sounds much stronger, much louder, and I was actually happy with the experience. And now here we are in the camera section. It's no regular camera. It may be a 12 megapixel shooter, it may be a singular camera. It's the first placed on DxOMark. That's got to count for something. So 12.2 megapixels. We got dual pixel technology here, dual pixel autofocus, f1.8 aperture, 1.4 micron pixels, laser focus apparently, and face detection autofocus, optical image stabilization combined with electronic stabilization, 4K video, and a small dual LED flash next to it. At the front there is an 8 megapixel shooter with 1.4 micron pixels, f2.4 aperture, and the camera UI is pretty straightforward. You can see it here, it's minimalistic and it feels like it offers some extras from the usual experience. What I loved is how snappy everything is, the fluid zoom, the incredibly fast focus. It's almost Samsung fast, as you know. Galaxy S7 and S8 are the fastest to focus. Now we have here the white balance. You can set up the exposure with the slider here. We got a grid, we got your motion photo, which is basically like the live photo from Apple. We got HDR plus enhanced, HDR plus on, or HDR off, depending on what you choose. HDR plus enhanced gives you a boost for the colors, as far as I've heard, aside from the regular features that you will get here. And other than that, let's see what options we have. We have the timer, slow motion, panorama, photosphere, portrait, and settings. Settings are these ones. No trace of shutter option, no trace of ISO, metering, or focus. Okay, so let's see what portrait is all about. You press it, it's basically your bokeh effect, so you can take a photo and blur the background, and you can take some stunning selfie shots with the portrait activated. Okay, so here we are done with the camera UI. Time to go to the actual Photos app and see the pictures we've taken, and be advised, we've taken a lot of them, and many of them involve burgers and pancakes, so do not crave. First of all, we have some fantastic looking portrait shots. Even though I wasn't the most photogenic that day, these images look really amazing. There are people walking behind me, and the portrait shot adds the professional effect. So these are the people walking, and that's the shot with the very same people who have been blurred in order to highlight my face. So excellent skin, I can really see all my pores. I've seen phones which can highlight my pores, but this one takes things to a whole new level. Excellent texture of the hair, of the face, of the clothes. So I have to say, up until now, the best selfie shooter was probably, let's say, the iPhone 8 Plus, iPhone X, and the Sony Xperia XZ1. The Note 8 did not impress me. Well, this one actually takes the cake. The Pixel 2 XL is the best selfie shooter in 2017. Now, speaking of other good things, we have an excellent focus here, especially if you want to talk close-ups. We're playing with the portrait again. You can see it here, the difference in focus and the degree of blur, really highlighting objects. And here on this phone, you can actually go closer in close-ups compared to other phones, which is always a plus. Okay, now that we're done with the selfies and we can conclude that they're fantastic, probably the best in 2017, let's talk about the level of detail. So I saw something interesting here. So I saw some moss under those tiles, and I went further and further, or better said closer and closer, and I noticed the texture of the moss, which is fantastic. Once again, these are stepping stones, you're stepping on them, you see the green moss, you come closer and closer and you see the level of detail is quite impressive. So keep that in mind for future reference when I'm going to criticize the level of detail, but that happened to the video and it happens on a rainy day. So overall, I'm pretty happy with texture, with the colors, and you're basically going to be hard pressed to find a blurred shot in the hundreds of photos we've taken. I don't know if I'm mistaken or not, but I could have taken maybe like 400 photos with this phone, not even exaggerating. As you can see, we've taken a bunch, and it was a very cloudy day, even rainy, so thank God for HDR and the HDR Plus features. Other than that, I have to say perfect HDR. I have to admit that the dynamic range was much of a challenge because that usually involves some sun and clouds, the contrast. Here you can see a trace of the HDR working fine without exaggerating like some phones do. And I love the hues of blue here. Let's find a shot with blue because that particularly impressed me. So maybe this one here. Check out the blues, they're quite nice. But the greens were not as impressive. You may remember the moss from before. In real life, it's exactly not that green. So a bit of, let's say, exaggeration of the greens, but the reds, the blues, and the yellows were quite okay in my book. And once again, very rainy day in December, which has got to count for something. The panorama was rather generous at a resolution of 16,384 pixels over 2068 pixels, pretty solid, and no big curve, so nothing to object there. We also have some nice close-ups, and I would have to say these are the kind of close-ups. You can really go close and take a photograph with a ton of detail, unlike some other phones out there, and even the iPhone X does not support that. I would put it on par, this phone, easily with the Samsung Galaxy Note 8, with the iPhone X, or a bit above it, and it's certainly a jump from the already excellent Google Pixel XL. It takes great food pictures as well, so we have some burgers here, so do not drool. Excellent texture. If you're a food blogger, you'll certainly enjoy this attribute. And some pancakes too, for good measure. Okay, so we're done with the indoor shots and outdoors ones. It feels like one of the best phones this year, if not the best. It could only be surpassed by the Xperia XZ1 thanks to its details. Now let's go to the low light capture, and here we are. Okay, so these are the low light photos taken with the phone. We have a special folder for them, so let's try and find them. Here we played with the whole portrait thing. Zoom on the duck, blur the bear, and here the bear is clear and the duck also clear, so you can alternate the focus easily, and portrait actually works. Now, if you want to talk about low light pictures, one thing is for sure, they're very, very bright, even though the phone doesn't brag with a f1.6 aperture like other phones. A bit of a disappointment came when I activated the flash. So this is a photo without the flash. So try to zoom in, maybe. It's a motion photo, so let's take that off. So now we should be able to zoom in. So a regular photo, and the same photo with the flash, you can see it's slightly bluish, so when you turn on the flash, a blue hue may appear. Other than that, I would have to say I'm very satisfied with the brightness. Even the zoom in was nice, so pretty okay details, no exaggeration with the yellow hues, no strange halos, no strange artifacts, and there were some long halos at first, but in general they had a pretty okay size. Excellent level of detail, okay zoom, very bright, and I cannot wait to see a f1.6 aperture phone like the Mate 10 Pro from Huawei taking on this phone in a similar scenario. And again, the flash makes things a bit blue. Other than that, it's the equal of the Galaxy Note 8, iPhone X. It beats all the Huawei phones I tested so far and all the LGs. It's an LG, so it's a winner. And to me, it's clearly above the iPhone 8 and iPhone 8 Plus, and also the iPhone X, but not by very much. I would say more like equal to the iPhone X. Now we are done with the photos, totally done. Let's take care of the video. So we have everything here. We have 4K, we have Full HD 60 frames per second, but we do not have 4K 60 frames per second for some dubious reason. And let's try and find some of the videos. So this one, totally dark, it was raining, it's December, and still in spite of that pretty good clarity. MP4 Full HD 30 frames per second, 22 megapixel bitrate, fast exposure change. Somehow I was not impressed by the level of details when zooming in. I zoomed onto that tree with some expectations, but we did meet some grain in the finer details, and I feel that an Xperia has the upper hand here. And here comes the stabilization test. We're walking around, descending some stairs, and I have to say it's quite good. It's not Xperia XZ1 good, it's not Steady Shot good, but it's better than the iPhone X and the iPhone 8 Plus even. And by the way, I have to say that I'm not exactly impressed by the hues of green you see here, which I also see in the photo area. Once again, the blues, yellows and reds are better a bit. But stabilization is quite fine, I would say very close to the level of the Galaxy Note 8. Let's find some other videos. Of course, 4K clips will look picture perfect. like a National Geographic documentary. All the details, the brightness, the colors you want are here. Perfect focus, not one trace of focus loss, so nothing to object. Be careful not to cover the microphones, because I did and the sound was echoey, but usually it faces the wind, okay, and things were generally nice. We shot 2 slow motion videos, 240 frames per second and 120. It can easily take on any iPhone, believe me. To me, the iPhone is the benchmark when it comes to the slow motion, even though Sony has that gimmick with the 960 frames per second. Some more videos here of moving objects, some panning, with zero problems once again. And even though I say zero problems, if you look at the distance of the trees, you cannot see their leaves exactly, so the details are clearly lacking compared to a 20 megapixel camera like Sony is offering, which was to be expected, to be honest, but the clarity is perfect, especially if you keep it in the 4K range. We also shot things in color. This is the 60 frames per second video. As you can see, it's more cinematic, and here the colors were a bit overblown. The red turned to pink, the green was disappointing a bit. If you look here especially, you should be able to find a strange hue of green. We also have some more videos of a food truck festival, and it also includes music, so less avoid copyright. Those are 4K ones. So I would have to say that this feels slightly below the Sony Xperia XZ1, also slightly below the iPhone X, but it beats 99% of Huawei's, it beats all Asus phones, all LG phones, and the only things dragging it down are the details and the hue of green. However, it was a very rainy day, and I'll suspend my judgment until we get to test it on a sunny day, which in December is very hard to find. This was daytime video capture. Now, if you want low light video capture, I got you covered with some clips like this one here. Very bright, some flicker for no obvious reason, okay street light halos, unimpressive zoom, some artifacts if you really look closely. I invite you to look on YouTube on the PC. Nice panning, nice motion tracking, solid stabilization, but the zoom drops details a lot. Okay, at least the colors are quite reasonable and the clarity is picture perfect. Here we're moving around, stabilization is nice. It's clearly above the Asus Zenfone 4, the LG G6, and I actually went back last year and looked up the Pixel XL capture. This one totally surpasses it. That one had a lot of fog. Well, it may have been actual fog because it was later in December, but I would say that this one is clearly better in clarity and brightness. And the Pixel XL was very praised by people for its camera. Now we are done. I can see why it's the first placed in the XO mark. However, there are some chapters where I still say the Xperia XZ1 is better. Now if you want to talk about the browser, we got Chrome, obviously. Okay, and let's load up gsndom.com. By the way, we have a new interface, a new theme. Hope you love it. Sites load up faster and everything looks better. So we're on gsndom.com, we're using the keyboard, it's got swipe, and we got some satisfying results here. I'm talking about the benchmarks for the browser. I'm also talking about Velamo and SunSpider with pretty good scores, finally, after a while of Chrome not impressing us very much. On the connectivity front, things are predictable. We got an USB Type-C port at the bottom, there is no audio jack, no infrared emitter, there's Wi-Fi A, B, GNAC with MIMO 2x2, and there's also GPS, GLONASS, Galileo, Beidou, Bluetooth 5.0 plus LE. We also have NFC, eSIM support, which is important for Project Fi, 4G LTE category 15, USB Type-C 3.1 by the way, Nano SIM 4x4 MIMO for the 4G LTE. Calls were perfect, believe me. This big slit is no accident. It's a big earpiece, very loud, very clear, no metallic sound, and we have 3 microphones doing an excellent job with noise cancelling. Now, if you want to talk about the results in speed test, once again, we've got you covered. Here we go, excellent results. So on Wi-Fi, 437 megapers downloads, 26 megapers uploads, that's nice. On 4G, 159 over 47, all of them great results. Now, the OS we're running on here is Android 8.0 Oreo. In the meantime, Android 8.1 was launched. This is a stock version of the software, and as you can see, the Google bar is now in the lower area. If you want to look stuff up, it's here, it's handy, and it's easily used. One of the core novelties compared to other phones out there is the fact you can squeeze the edges to trigger the Google Assistant, which can help you with a lot of stuff. Other than that, Android 8.0 Oreo is just as I said in the first review we did for it on the Xperia XZ1. It's tidier with the settings area. They're more centralized right now and they're more nested, so instead of having, I don't know, 5 sections for connectivity, we have one section and then the next 5 sections. Some people love it, some people don't. The thing I hate the most about Oreo is the fact they will make me use a very small settings shortcut here. Other than that, we got notification dots. You keep press like this and you can see here updates available. Again, you can see my apps, and we got color coded, as you can see, notification dots here. I can see them for my for my Gmail. We got your receipts. You can compose an email right from here. And another thing, notifications, they're split in categories and something like channels. We got snooze for notifications, and once there's too many of them, you can see them here as small icons getting reorganized, which is very nice. You can rearrange your quick settings area. The design has been changed. The music player, which sits here in the drop down area, has a different design. Multitasking is the same, a carousel, and of course split screen. We couldn't have it without split screen, and we can listen to music and browse on our website at the same time. Split screen is a thing, of course. Okay, so I briefly mentioned the whole Google Assistant thing. It's actually so important that Google promotes it on the box. So you squeeze the edges. What's the weather like? And it shows me that, and I can go on and choose this. It's got contextuality. And you can go on a loop as much as you want. You can ask it to send you daily stuff, and it also has lens. So let's check out the power of lens. We press this one here and you can tap what you're interested in. So if I have some Oreo, let's see, tap it, Oreo, so it found it and you can share it. Put it aside. We have a Rubik's Cube, check it out, tap it, a toy. Sometimes it hits and misses, some wines I threw at it, did not recognize, also some books. With text it can handle it better. So Google Lens, I'm thinking it's a sort of a beta when it comes to the integration in Google Assistant. Anyway, Google Assistant is great for a lot of tasks, so I actually play with it a lot, with weather. I made it recognize a lot of things like a remote, a CD, you can see here a lot of things, even my cat. And it can show you landmarks, barcodes, book and media, text, shows me restaurants nearby and a lot of other things which you can also order to be shown via text. So that's Google Assistant in a nutshell. Now with a more human response, and when it comes to the pre-installed apps, we got 23 of them, which means no bloatware. They're pretty straightforward. We got Allo, we got calculator, calendar, camera, Chrome, clock, contacts, Daydream, Docs, Drive, Duo, Gmail, Google Maps, Messages, Photos, Play Games, and Play Store. By the way, another notification dot here, which is useful. Okay, so other than that, let's check out the settings, which are pretty straightforward, nothing fancy here. We got display, sound, storage, security and location, Google Play Protect, which came with Oreo, accessibility, Google settings and services, and let's see what else. Well, we got a fingerprint scanner, which is placed here at the back, and I'm going to test it for you, so let's check it out. Security, we got the pixel imprint, that's the name they're using. They wouldn't want to call it just fingerprint scanner because that's for normies and Google is no normie. Okay, touch the sensor, let's see how many steps it takes. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, ooh, just 6. Usually 8 was the benchmark and most phones had 12 steps or 15 steps. So here we go. Put the finger here, instant unlock, 90 degrees, instant unlock, and 180 degrees, a bit trickier, but still instant unlock. Let's try again. Very fast unlock for sure. So it's pretty tidy, it's well organized, it's got this area here with my favorite cards of things that interest me, totally customizable. Google Assistant easily accessible like this by squeezing the edges. You can also select the squeezable amount, so to say. We can set a reminder, send a message. You can basically do everything like you were having a Google Home in your pocket. And you can also edit the quick toggles. Okay, so that's it. This has been the review of the Google Pixel 2 XL. People have been saying it has bugs. My unit did not have them, maybe aside from a grayish hue when you hold the phone like this. Other than that, I guess it's time to talk about the pros and cons. So, first of all, on the pro side, it's a comfy phone, it's a very bright phone, screen wise, got a very good battery. When it comes to video playback, excellent speakers, especially with the surround, also quite loud, good performance, flawless in performance actually, perfect selfies, and the portrait mode really won me over. We got great pictures and videos overall, excellent stabilization compared to the iPhone X for example, fluid Oreo with a lot of promise, and pretty nice Google Assistant features. On the bad side, on the con side, well, the screen gets gray at a certain angle, the texture of the device didn't impress me. It's not glass and it's not metal, it's something in between, closer to plastic and polycarbonate or graphite. That's what it feels. There's the burn-in effect, which should appear on some phones. Well, not this one, but if you leave this on too much, you may still see the bar later on. And other than that, well, the details and the hue of green in the photos and videos could have been a bit better. The power button placement is exactly inspired. I always place the volume up button by mistake. There's no other use for the active edges aside from Google Assistant, and we actually wanted more, maybe like trigger the camera, and we do not have 4K 60 frames per second video capture. However, in spite of all of those, I have to mention this is a phone that Android fans must have. It's for the purists, people who want the pure, the latest, the best Android update. In a pricier package, I know, $850, and finally I can say it's superior to its predecessor, the Pixel XL, in design, camera for sure, and acoustics. So for only those three reasons and the fact that you get a bigger screen, you should probably get this phone. And of course the faster updates and the pretty badass looking screen, curved, comfy, narrow, excellent camera, even though the Xperia XZ1 may have something to say in that area. And one of the best things about it is that it's actually easier to buy nowadays. Last year there was a bit of a shortage for the first Pixel models. This one is easier to find and it's a solid purchase. You can easily make it to the top 3 phones of the year, or at least the top 5. For me it's top 3 for sure. This is it from gsrandom.com. This has been the review of the Google Pixel 2 XL. Bye bye.